When I first started working with them, they weren't even sure that that business was vital. It was kind of like a hobby, and they thought maybe this has legs, maybe it doesn't. So they really weren't sure. And within 4 to 6 weeks, they went, okay, we made a decision. And I went, what? We think it's viable. We're going to go for it.
Some of the results you witnessed were 30% annual sales and growth, 47% year-to-date revenue growth, and a 68% year-to-date profit growth. Hello, Juliette.
Hello, Stephen.
Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today, Common Sense AI. I've had the pleasure of speaking with you a couple times now and got to learn a lot about your background. I'm ready to talk about that and open up that today. And I'm just excited to share with anyone who might be watching just about the great experience you've had helping specifically women business owners. You're based in Atlanta and you've done some incredible work. So I look forward to sharing some of those examples, but more importantly, talking about your framework that helps you deliver great results. But before we do that, I want to just dive in and introduce you. You've actually been 30 years in the making of serving people. Being a coach of some sort. You've had success owning your own businesses. You've developed teams and people, and now you are a successful business coach through Focal Point. Is that right?
That is correct.
And I found it interesting when I listened to you about just kind of your background. You said that you come from a family of Cuban immigrants, and it was very your parents had impressed upon you, or it was a strong impression in your mind that was left about how they served people, mostly people that were immigrating as well, and that just sort of grafted into you this idea of service to your community, and so I thought that was really interesting. But could you share a little bit more about where you're based and what you do, and I guess where you're based and a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, and you're absolutely right in the way you phrased it as far as grafted, because it is in my DNA to be of service. So that was great. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I was born in New York, though. And I have been coaching, developing people since I can remember. Even I would just have this understanding of asking them what they wanted. Will you do anything to get there? And then helping them go through a strategy and say, hey, I'll help you get there. And I would. And so it was something kind of innate that became my framework that I didn't even realize was a framework. And then I, of course, expanded it with Focal Point.
That's great. Yeah. Sometimes we just fall into these things. And I think that's when we have this opportunity to take advantage, and it seems like you were able to work into that, having some great experience, but then knowing when it was your calling. And so that's great. And I also want to kind of call out too that the framework that you've developed over this time, you've realized that most business owners don't necessarily struggle because they lack intelligence or competence. It's really about they struggle because of the lack of clarity, avoiding key decisions, and actually losing focus on what actually matters. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I found that to be really the most important thing about how you work with people and how you are able to, like I said, achieve those results. Is that's kind of what you've observed. And so your framework addresses that. So I definitely look forward to getting into that. And so, yeah, with that said, we can dive in. Anything else that you're thinking of that you wanted to share, maybe about just perhaps the businesses that you've owned, or, the work that you've had previous to this? I don't know, it might help to align, with anybody who's watching this and might have similar experience.
Well, I cut my teeth in sales and management in retail. I became a district manager, and I was in retail for 7.5 years. And if you can do that, you can do anything. And from there, I went into corporate America and was in sales. And I just love being of service. So to me, sales is service. You have something that people need and you're helping them get there. doesn't feel sleazy or weird the way that you initially might think about sales. From there, I went into developing people, training them, making sure that they got what they wanted, because you have to know what they want in order to then help them become the best or become what they want to be. And that's through training, development. And then I got to promote a lot of people in corporate America. And it was phenomenal. And I think when I look back, I did this to myself. I feel like my secret to success is I would decide what I wanted or had clarity about what I wanted. I would decide if I was willing to pay the price. Because you can say, hey, I want to be a TV anchor, but maybe you don't want to work weekends. You don't want to travel all over the world. Then you're not going to decide to do it. So you have to kind of come to that. Am I willing to do what it takes? And then you do it. So that's kind of my personal framework that then became more of the clarity, decision, strategy, results.
That's great. Yeah, I remember part of our conversation that we had that you were just mentioning. And it's the idea that in sales, sometimes it could be misaligned with the person. And because of that, you start to have some interesting thoughts that are sort of detracting from your overall success, right? And that's because people might have this general perception that people in sales, they're just trying to make a dollar. And certainly there are times when you can kind of feel when someone's just selling something to sell something. But I think one of the things that I really enjoyed that we discussed last time, and I want to make mention of it, is that when you're aligned with your goals and your passion, then we can actually benefit from having that as the motivating or the driving factor that people will even eventually see through any of the smoke and mirrors or any of the posturing, and see that passion. And that's what really attracts them or entices them, because then you're able to sell something with conviction. And it's not about, at the end of the day, we're all grown adults. And so people make decisions based on where they are at in that moment in their life. And you never know that someone can be needing exactly what you're selling. And it doesn't matter at the end of the day, what product or what service, even people who might not be in a traditional role of quote unquote sales, they're still selling maybe their intellect, or maybe they're selling their knowledge, right? Everyone at some point or somewhere in the chain is selling something. And that was a big epiphany for me, where, especially as a business owner, you realize that it's not just about delivery, anymore. It's about building relationships and always listening to ways that you can be of service to someone. And it's not about being sleazy. It's not about being, I don't know, any of the bad labels that you can, put on a salesperson. It's just about being conscious, being attentive to people, serving people, knowing how you can help. And it really actually, I think, forms, not your identity, but it forms kind of your ethos a little bit more of how you're always trying to help people. The other thing is being able to meet someone where they are at, and having those two things align. And that's a great scenario, of course. So
it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to say to a client, you know what? I don't think I'm the right person for you, or I'm not the right service for you. And you have to be willing to admit that and say it's okay not to buy from me.
Yep. That's right. Yeah. And that's another great place to be in. Initially, maybe as you're starting out a career, you'll take everything and anything because, and you should, that would almost be like a suggestion, because you don't know what you don't know. And the world is still your oyster in that sense. And, but as you mature and, get older, in your career, then being able to have a specific understanding of where you can serve people the best is actually a really good place to be in. I think that's where also a lot of opportunity comes from. You refine kind of your skills within a certain niche. And I think there's a lot of benefit to that. So yeah, another good point there. So with that said, Juliette, how about we dive into the framework? I know that you shared with me, how you've had a lot of success with, in fact, there's even a business case most recently that you had shared with me where there was a product innovator specializing in modular backdrop systems. So basically creating like professional shooting environments and using your kind of like coaching this person using your framework. Some of the results you witnessed were 30% annual sales and growth, a 47% year-to-date revenue growth, and a 68% year-to-date profit growth. So that's incredible. Anybody who's running a business and can see that kind of improvement in their numbers, that's like the difference between maybe thinking that your business is going to not survive and feeling like you're really accomplishing something. And what I recall from what you shared with me is really it focuses on kind of 4 different stages. Stage 1 is clarity. Stage 2 is the decision-making stage. Stage 3 is the strategy. And finally, stage 4 are the results. So I'd love it if you could dive in, maybe start with that first stage and just share with us, how you take a business owner through that.
Well, the first, the case study that you've just mentioned, when I first started working with them, they weren't even sure that that business was viable. It was kind of like a hobby, and they thought, maybe this has legs, maybe it doesn't. So they really weren't sure. And within 4 to 6 weeks, they went, okay, we made a decision. And I went, what? And they're like, we think it's viable. We're going to go for it. And I was thrilled because I believed it too. And I imparted that belief because I wouldn't if I didn't feel it. And that was the start. So once they started believing, okay, this is good, we can move it forward, then they decided to do whatever it took. And there were some days that when we'd have our sessions that there was a little bit of, why do I have to do this? And I feel like you're giving me more work. But I would just not say much and say, well, what is it you want? And reminding them of what they were trying to get to. And part of that is with clarity, you have to have balance. So you have to have that personal side too. And one time when she was very upset with me, I just can't do all this. And I looked at her and I said, how many times have you been to the gym lately? And she kind of went, no, I haven't been. And I'm like, I hate to say this, but you have to take care of you. And if you take care of you and you work out, then you're going to feel better at work and not feel so stressed. So it's kind of simplistic, but it kind of changed her whole attitude. And from there on in, she was like, get out of my way. I'm going to do everything and more that you might suggest. But really, people know what they really need to do. You're just helping them get to that answer. I don't tell people what to do.
And so I
help them get to the answer.
That's interesting. As a part of getting this person to their ultimate goal, one of the first things was, hey, you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of your physical self. That's great. Like that's such a, what do you say? Usually everything is like business oriented. Right. You got to do this. You got to feel, I don't know, buy this thing or get that thing. You got to start talking to these people. Sometimes if you're being very conscious of where the gaps are and what needs to be filled, it could just be taking care of yourself slightly, just so that way you have a good foundation from which to grow, right? Right.
Because if you're so stressed, you're not going to be able to give very well at work. You're not going to be able to be your best.
Yeah. Or even develop that clarity, right? I feel like that's kind of those two things go hand in hand. I can't tell you how many times I come back from a run, do a workout, and I'm just like, okay, I'm ready to go. All of my, endorphins have rushed through my body. All of my, all the stress or whatever has been kind of like washed out as well. And my mind is able to rest and think and focus. It's not like there's actually a difference, I would say, between like coffee energy and then like workout energy, right? There's sometimes coffee energy, if you're just like dumping more caffeine onto the chaos, you're just like, like my brain is even doing like chaos even faster now. So yeah, I love that. Anything else about the clarity aspect in terms of the first stage of the framework that you want to share?
Well, part of that clarity was they didn't have KPIs. They didn't have key performance indicators. They weren't tracking numbers. They didn't know their numbers. So that was part of clarity. And once we did that, they realized that they were flat from the year before. We started working together in July. And by the end of the year, we had set a goal when we started working together that they would be 30% up by the end of the year. And they surpassed it by just like 1%. So the clarity of seeing the numbers and committing to doing the work.
Huge. Yeah. Man, that's such a powerful, like, understanding for a business owner. If not, you're just flying blind, right? Like, you see money coming in, but if you don't know what's going out, how efficient you are, where the gaps are, you could just be bleeding, resources in some place that is really making your business more of a hobby and not a business. Businesses make money, or at least that's what and even the IRS kind of stipulates that if you haven't made money, I think it's for 3 years, then they consider you a hobby and you're no longer a business.
Oh, that's fun.
So
I didn't realize that. That's
that's
but I think, I think, for them to tell me, or someone to tell me, hey, I want to make more money. I want more revenue. Well, great. How much more?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, because I don't know my numbers. So you have to know that. You have to know where you are to know where you're going to go.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And I think when you mentioned that last time, as we were, again, discussing kind of just lightly, about what we talk about, and that's, being that this is the Common Sense AI podcast, I did want to intertwine, some places, but that's where AI is kind of really being a really useful resource to people. Is a lot of times, people lack systems and process, or maybe perhaps they've just not started off on the right foot when it comes to organizing their information. That's part of the clarity aspect that we were talking with. Not only is it clarity in kind of the fundamentals and what you want in life, and how you structure your health and your wellness, but getting clarity in the numbers. I think that's another big aspect, and that's where AI is making some huge leaps and bounds, because what used to silo people and silo information and make things really difficult to flow from one system to another system. Man, there's some amazing things that we've been doing with personal clients of mine to really aggregate everything under the sun and give a great view of the business metrics, right? So that way you can't make decisions, you can't improve on something that you don't monitor. And so if, the fact that you come in there and you do that with these clients, that's a huge, benefit for them, I would say.
Yeah. You cannot manage what you cannot measure.
Yep.
Right. I mean, that's just, that. And I think a big surprise that I see the small business owners is they really don't want to even look at their numbers sometimes. They're afraid. But sometimes it is scary to look at them. But when you look at them, then you can go, okay, now I can figure out with strategy how to get to where I want to be.
Yeah, great points on clarity here. Stage one. So after clarity, we go to decision. Now you have some information, and now you're ready to make decisions, right?
Right. And decision is kind of twofold as far as committing to doing what it takes. Because a lot of people are like, yeah, okay, I understand what I want. Yeah, I really want to do that. Yeah, I want that. And then they're like, and they don't do it. I mean, we've all seen people, I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to, write a book. And then they just don't do it. So part of decision is the commitment. And the second part is once you've got the clarity and the commitment, then you can make better decisions. So that's how I look at the decision aspect.
Awesome. Yep. Yeah. Something just that popped in my mind about this, aspect of making decisions and being able to do that. It could get into the psychology of the mind. There's this great book that I read along the way called Atomic Habits. And I just realized how sometimes I could sabotage my own hopes and dreams by just not having good habits. And so this whole book talks about habit stacking and how we, you can build, again, another framework or a process around how we motivate ourselves, but we have to understand how humans have evolved and how humans, what motivates us, and specifically you, right? You as an individual. But there are some very interesting and simple things that we can do to actually get in the habit of accomplishing things. Because one of the things that was described is that the things that we're doing actually, like, they result in a chemical reward in our brain, that dopamine response. And so you could almost deduce everyone's actions across the board in life that we're all just chasing that next dopamine hit. And so,
Right.
yeah. Whether it's this screen scrolling, doom scrolling, or TV, or, sweets, or just, we're all doing it, getting it from somewhere. And so then how do we actually get that same reward from doing the things that are actually good for us, right? Or that align with our goals. And that's easier said than done. I think that and that's where having a business coach, and one that understands these things, and one that has been there, done that, seen the success of following a framework and having accountability, that's where there can be great results, right? Because you finally get someone to help you align what's actually good for your future self with what you're doing currently, rather than just like living for the moment, right?
Right. Well, you can get a dopamine hit by eating your frog first.
Yeah.
Brian Tracy is the co-founder of Focal Point, and he's well known. I mean, he's 80 something now, so a lot of people that are younger don't know who he is, but he's a tremendous sales and management guru, written over 70 books. One of his books is Eat That Frog. And what he talks about is based on a quote by Mark Twain, that if you eat a frog first thing in the morning, the rest of your day will go well. Nothing's going to be worse than that. And the frog is a metaphor for the one task, that big daunting task, that if you do it, everything will be better, but you keep avoiding it and putting it off. And so that's part of what I do with my clients. What is the frog? What is the one thing that if you do it first, then it's a dopamine hit once you get it done and you get it first thing, and then we do the rest of your day.
Yep. Super important. That's great. What else? Anything else about the decision stage? I think you were just saying that, like, I think one of the things you saw, like, how great salespeople got promoted into leadership roles that they were never prepared for. And so there's kind of like this identity crisis that follows after. Anything you can share a little bit more there about that process that you've seen?
Yeah, I think that just because you're a great salesperson doesn't mean you're going to be a great leader or manager. And I would put more of the onus on the person that's promoting them, because it's a completely different role to be in sales than to be leading a team. And so if they're not giving that person support, training, guidance, mentoring, whatever it is, that person, they could possibly be setting them up for failure, because it's not the same to sell as to lead. So I think that that's where there's a lot of mistakes made. And as a manager, really and truly, if someone's failing, you should look at yourself. I mean, this is what I believe. You look at yourself and say, what did I contribute to them not making it or failing? And you would have to say to yourself, well, I didn't give them enough training. I didn't give them enough guidance. I wasn't, there for them when they needed help. And that really helps you then try to correct it.
Right.
Hopefully. Not everybody's cut out for leadership or management. It's not easy.
It's not easy. Yeah. And thankfully there are great business coaches out there that can help them.
We try.
Yeah. It's it really is. It's something that, gosh, it's something that some people don't even think about in terms of the impact that someone like you can have on their life, to help see things from the outside and just give that, give those nudges and urges and build the process and a framework around them. So yeah, it's, and I have to say, I'm probably even one of those people. You just realize in your life as you get wiser that mentors are important, and people that can guide you are important. So,
right. And the objectivity of a coach is really amazing. It's just like a personal trainer. You go to them, I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to get strong. Well, they're going to give you the expertise and guidance, but they're also holding you accountable. Right. That's part of my role with a client.
Yep.
Whether they like me or not. And I've said to people, You didn't do the assignment. That's okay. I'm not mad at you. I'm not going to ever be upset with you. Life happens. Business happens. Why don't we go over it together?
Nice.
Because that's the reality. Life does happen and business does happen. But
Right.
part of it is then you have to help them nudge and get it done anyway.
Right. And to be in a safe place where they know that they're getting that encouragement, right? It's not a stick. It's more of the
Right.
carrot. And it's like, no, not even a carrot per se, but it's just, yeah, to be able to develop yourself in a safe environment where you are having an accountability partner. That's another huge
Right.
factor. Yeah.
Right. Going back to decision for a moment, when I am going to work with someone, I'm not going to just, and this sounds weird, but if I had a line of people that wanted me to coach them, I wouldn't take every one of them because number one, we have to have good chemistry, right?
Yeah.
We have to be able to feel safe and trusting with each other. The second thing is I have to understand their commitment because if they're not committed, I don't want it to be more important to me if they get their goal than to them.
Right.
So that's a big thing for me, that's a decision on their part. Okay, I know I have an issue. I'm going to commit to this program.
Right. Right.
Decision.
It's a decision. But once you get that decision, right, you've developed the clarity with them. You know that they're committed and they're making decisions and they've identified them. They've put that out in the world into their mind. Now you get into the strategy, right?
Right. The fun part.
So tell us a little bit about the strategy, how that comes in next.
While throughout we're going through the clarity and decision, we're also doing different exercises. For example, your ICP, who's your ideal client? Why? Why do you sell or do what you do? What are they really buying? And you go through your values. I mean, everything. So you come up with your differentiators, what sets you apart and why people should buy from you. That sets the stage really for the strategy. And then from there you go through, okay, what do we need to do? We need to have more sales. We need to get more visibility. And then you craft your strategy from there, whether it's, gaining visibility through Google Maps, whether it's advertising, whether it's doing more trade shows based on the client and their objectives. You craft the strategy from there. And I support that strategy and execution.
That strategy piece, man, people like to throw it around, but to have knowledge on how you actually strategize on something and having experience in an industry, having done things before gives you such a leg up, and being able to confide and work with someone who has executed on that strategy before. Even if I would say like the exact pattern has changed because culture has changed or technology has changed. It's even the fact that they've been down that road, right? And they know that whether it's just grit or like you said, I actually appreciated what you were saying about, you've developed your clarity. You've developed even the clarity comes with knowing numbers, right? In sales, a lot of the strategy is based around like observing your landscape, right? Getting all the data, seeing where you're doing the best, where you're doing the worst, knowing where you can pull the levers and have the biggest impact. And so you've in your framework, you've really established that strategy. And so coming into it, it's so much about just reverse engineer, maybe you can use that word, but you just see where the bottlenecks are, right? Like if you're
very true.
If you're in a sales position where you're generating leads, right? And I use this with a lot of clients where, we know that we're doing well in getting great conversions on the ads that we've created. We're getting great leads coming in and signing up and giving us their information, right? And all along the way, there are certain metrics that we've identified. What are our baselines, right? What do we expect? What are industry averages? But sometimes it could be further up the funnel, like, oh, maybe that ad didn't work or something like that. And that you need to change your ad, or maybe it's the copy, of the ad, or, however it might be. But wherever that bottleneck is, you solve for that and then you keep going. And hopefully you're getting the right data, right? Again, that goes back to getting garbage in, garbage out. If for some reason your foundation isn't set up properly, then you miss out on that, or you get the wrong signals perhaps. So that's also a very important reason of why you want to build that foundation, from correctly from the beginning. So
that's why it's so important.
Yeah. So what are some of the other things in strategy that you do with your clients? Do you have any case studies or other
well,
things?
The particular one you're talking about is such a great illustration on so many levels. Their sales were not great, and they were getting ready to do a trade show. And I said, so let's role play. And we did some sales training and role playing. And she said, I'm not comfortable being a salesperson. And I'm like, oh, okay, but what if you look at sales like service? I basically helped her understand what you guys are doing with this fabulous product and the modular system is helping photographers and videographers make their business faster, easier, more professional. They can get in more shoots, see more clients. I said, that's amazing. So instead of trying to sell them on that, you say, how's it working for you right now in the studio? What is your biggest challenge in setting up, your backdrops? And you find out if they have a problem and if they need what you can offer. So it changed her whole mindset. And they went and they blew it out of the water. I think they more than doubled that trade show.
That's
and I'm proud like a mom. Like, oh my God, it's so great. Yeah, I get very excited when they do well.
That's such valuable advice for any. It's like if you're in business, you're there to provide a service or value in some way to your clients. It's like if you don't believe wholeheartedly in your product or your service, then you're probably doing the wrong thing. Like especially if it's your business, right? And so with that, I think there's a huge value in what you just did there to align and get that person to view it in the sense of you have to understand the value that you're giving to people and explain that to them, because if you can't do that, then nobody else is, of course. And especially if that person has experience in the industry, you got to imagine there's a reason why they, again, developed that product or service to begin with. I would actually say that I'm guilty of that. I kind of grew up in product development with technology. And for the longest time, I just kind of was able to hide away in just building, right? I just want to build stuff and, build this technology and not truly understand who my ICP was. It's just something that I thought was cool, or I was building because I had this one experience. But when you start to converse with people, when you start to open up to people, one of the things you have to do is share your ideas and get that feedback. I think that's kind of another paradigm shift for some people, perhaps if they haven't already done it, is people might have the tendency to sequester their ideas, or like you said with this one client where it was just kind of hard for her, and so whether she was doing that on accident or on purpose or whatever, but you have to understand what it is that the pain points of your clients, and then figure out what your product or service does to align with those pain points, to absolve them or whatever it might be. And that's such a valuable process to go through for anybody.
It really is. Another thing I've seen is, as a business owner, you think you know what your client wants or what they might want to buy. And I have been encouraging a lot of my clients to do client surveys. A gentleman that does dog mobile grooming and he does boarding. He's like, oh, I'm thinking of carrying, nutritious food and supplements. And I said, have you surveyed your clients? Are they interested in that? Are they interested in buying pet insurance from you? So he went, oh, and that's really what I'm helping people too, because they really do need to hear from their clients.
Yeah.
Especially if they didn't buy from them.
Yep. Your clients will tell you.
Oh, yes,
and nowadays, they'll either tell you or they'll go tell the internet.
Oh, yes, they will. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Very
actually
true.
one of the strategies I've done to help clients in my past, and I mean, not even past, currently, like if there's a new client, is like that part of that product research or that market research is going out to the internet, right? And that's another great thing that AI can do really well nowadays,
Right.
is really synthesize what's going on in that market, in that industry, even with that specific product. What are people saying about it? And it gives you some great insight to know how you might pivot, or how you can differentiate yourself. I think there's some great tools that you can use. Again, a lot of it being AI, things that you can do, even with like the platforms like Perplexity is a great one for research. So I like to use Perplexity. Manus is another great one. And it really it's like, even with some simple prompts, you could get good information, but as you get more dialed in and give it better context, give it better instruction, the AI can produce some amazing research before you make the wrong decision. So,
yeah. And I also think that people really should look at their competition. They should really look at what do they like, what a SWOT analysis, what do I offer that they don't? What do they offer that I don't?
Yep.
And that helps you come up with what I think is critical, which is differentiators.
Yeah.
And I was taught that you need to have at least three that you can boom, boom, boom. And those three differentiators are that, I'm sorry, my cat is on the desk. Three differentiators that are going to fill that pain point. Hey, we're going to save you time. You're going to reclaim your space, and you're going to be more efficient with your shoots. I mean, boom, boom, boom. And that is what gets the message across to people, and then they start paying attention.
Yep. Yeah, and that clarity goes back to clarity, is so important too. What I've realized as a lot more of my marketing side of the business has grown, is if you can't identify that, then you have a really hard time building out your creatives, building out your copy, right? You need that in order to build these assets that you then take to the world. If you don't have that, then that's a huge gap. And that's like, it's like one of the first things you need to solidify is like, what are your value propositions? What's your differentiating factors from your competitors? You have to educate the market and not just assume that they're going to like see the epiphany that you did, or know exactly why, your thing is the best in sliced bread. It's like,
Right.
You have to really draft that and imprint that. And then the other thing too, I'd go is like, after you identify the high level like value proposition, then the other thing is like, you might identify that there are 3 different ICPs, and when you ideal client profiles, and those ideal client profiles might have a different way in which they benefit, from that value. Or they might have different pain points. So then if you really start to segment it, that you have different personas that you've defined, that your marketing is like slightly different. And nowadays, with the power of the internet, with the power of AI, there's no reason why you can't know that to a T and sort of market to a T to your ideal client profiles, because I think the world expects that now, and I've always heard, we've always heard, if you talk to everybody, you're talking to nobody. You really have to.
Well, I think you're right about that.
Yeah. And so
not everybody's across a customer.
No. And that's a good opportunity for me to sort of reiterate again, like who you serve, right? When we started our conversation, I really was interested to know that you serve primarily women-owned, or like women business owners who are doing anywhere like 500,000 and above. And that's a really good, that's good clarity, to know who you serve. And I think some of the other sort of like, let's see, it's not just business owners, but you also have a special focus on medical and professional services. optometrists, plastic surgeons, chiropractors, lawyers, accountants, and really other service-based businesses. So these are people that you've had experience with, that you've helped, and so that's I just wanted to take that time because I thought that was important.
Well, I think when I left corporate America, I started my own business, and my clients were beauty professionals, hairstylists, estheticians, you name it. They weren't business owners. I mean, they were business owners because they came and rented a studio for me, but they weren't business professionals. And so I just started coaching them because it's in my blood, I guess. I just wanted to help. And of course, I never charged anything for it, but I would hold classes on marketing or business, or I'd do a lot of one-on-ones. What are your numbers? And they would be like, deer in the headlights. And I'm like, you want to increase your sales, but you got to know where you are right now. So it was so amazing to me I got the big dopamine hits from helping them and seeing them grow and become business people. And some of them went and flew the coop and became salon owners. And that's been very gratifying as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, that's wisdom right there.
I forgot to say, but that's why I wanted to work with small business owners, because number one, you can make an impact very quickly. Yes. And because I was a small business owner, I felt very lonely at the top. And I think it's really a critical thing to be able to offer.
Yeah, that's wisdom right there that you're sharing with people who, I think the benefit is that immediate, not transition, but that immediate, change in their lives, that you're able to, inject, this knowledge and see some immediate results. I'll also say that, like you just called out, that there's this, a bit of a rude awakening perhaps, but people who go into business might have a good skill and that's great, right? We all have to start somewhere. We all have to observe what our talents are and then go down that path. And then it's but that's step one. Step 2 to 100 is being a good business owner, being a good business professional, knowing how to market ourselves, knowing how to determine who our ICPs are, knowing how to market and know what our value propositions are. It's and then the accounting side of things, goodness gracious, it's knowing how to get good data and analyze your data. And that's where, I'd say, you talk about the impacts that you can enact on someone's life, especially in small business. I would say I've also seen some great impact. A lot of people, it really depends on who you are. I think there is this kind of divide of AI being, it could be seen in some people's eyes as a negative thing. And yes, I get it. We've all heard that AI is going to be taking over, right? Quote unquote. But it's doing some incredible things, but we have to see it as a tool, especially as a business owner. It's an incredible tool that's actually making huge impact in the small business owner, entrepreneur life. There's this segment that I'll probably do and come out with soon about just people are making these wild claims about this. In this era, there will be the first single entrepreneur $1 billion business, right? Because you're able as a single, you're working with agents, right? It's your employee, people that used to be the employees are now the agents, within AI. And of course you have to know that skill. So it's a whole different skill. But the point to say that is, even if we kind of put that in a more normal context or frame that in just kind of an everyday scenario, AI is incredibly capable of streamlining all these processes, of giving this insight that you've referred to, defining the clarity, even holding people accountable, right? You could build out AI systems that are tracking your results. Yes. So it's so cool to see. But
I love AI, and I'm about to take a course on it, so I can really learn enough to be dangerous.
Yes, just enough to be dangerous. Yeah, and we, I will go into that a little bit more, the AI part, ask a few questions, but before that, I want to make sure we've talked about, the clarity, the decision, the strategy is a part of the framework, and of course, all this leads to the results. So that's like step 4 in what you have put into play with your clients. And so could you share a little bit about step 4? And
Yes. Step 4, of course, is the real dopamine hit. I've always had where there's a will, there's a way. And again, part of it is knowing what you're trying to get to. I've been results oriented my whole life. It's about the bottom line. Where do I need, rather the top line, because I am a top line girl. But if we're doing the process, we're doing it right, which we have been, and we do the strategy, and we're learning, we're growing, then they're going to get the results. Especially, you get your KPIs, and if those are lining up, you can start projecting and see, not only am I going to get my results, I'm going to surpass them.
right.
And I think, to me, it's almost like, I'm not going to say fate, but in a way, like if I put it out there and I'm working towards it and I'm putting energy towards it, it's going to happen. It's just I add all those other layers, like the strategy and execution.
Yeah, no, and of course, like it's a process to get there. But one of the things you said that I like, and I've realized in my own business, is the results, you can start to anticipate them, right? Once you build the right framework, I'd say as a business owner, one of the biggest benefits is being able to rely on the system that you've set up. It's almost like it becomes a fine-tuned machine, right? A well-oiled machine that, rather than these crazy cycles of up and down, you kind of like, one of the end goals is just kind of like being able to build a more reliable system. But it can't happen without some of these foundations that you've laid first. And yeah, I've found that in my business, where like I think everyone's goal, right, is to know where their next client is coming from. So that's been a huge focus for me, is like, there are so many avenues to generate sales, and every industry and every product is very unique in its own way in terms of how the market will resonate, how the market will respond. Sometimes it might be Facebook ads, Instagram ads. Sometimes it might be TikTok, but it could also be cold email. It could also be cold calling, for that matter. It could be snail mail. You never know. I mean, I've never done
building relationships.
But yes, exactly. That is one thing that will never go out of business or never fade, is like building the personal relationship. And ironically, that's what it's also a change in perspective that I've had, where there was a time when I thought that me learning these kind of more technical methods of marketing and outreach and lead generation would be able to replace the personal touch. And that was like a fallacy of mine, like if anything, what I can say is what it does is it helps educate, and it helps to, like, I'd say narrow that funnel, and then make it a little bit more consistent, because there is a lot that your customer, we know this, right? Because we are the customers of other products and services. And so we sort of almost demand that there's information out there that we can consume first before we make a decision. It's very few and far between that someone's just going to make an impulse decision. And so because of that, people need to be able to find information about if you're the product or service, right? Or if you have a different product or service, they still want information. It's just the way it is. And so I think it's safe to say that we've migrated into an era where that's why all these things have become so valuable, like the platforms. Like for me, social media isn't social media where I like just hang out and consume, see like, it's just like you're getting information, right? You're seeing how people think. Not to mention, I mean, the way these things are set up, you're getting so many ads nowadays, but it feels like these people could be your friends in a way. You're identifying with them before you even make that decision, because they've opened up to you about something, the way they explain something. So taking advantage of that, especially, I mean, I'll throw it out there again, but gosh, if you know how to yield the power of AI, you could even have agents that are creating content for you based on your knowledge and your ideas, and you've just trained an AI to be able to create that for you. That's another reason why there is that proliferation of content right now, and why, like, but there's a good reason for it. Again, it's like that's what people are demanding before they make a decision to purchase your product or service.
Correct. But they need to know more.
Yeah.
And AI definitely does that. But one thing AI doesn't do is build relationships.
That's right.
Or build trust.
That's the
people buy when they trust.
Yes. Well, I would argue that the trust begins when, like, because there are multiple touch points that a customer needs before they make that decision as well. Google has the framework of like the 7-4-11. And so you need to be seen on multiple platforms. You need to be seen a few different times. But you're absolutely right. Like ultimately that final decision happens when that customer trusts you enough. And in this age of e-commerce and, internet, how do we do that? There are ways. And so depending on the business, of course, like there's a lot that we can do to build that trust before we come face to face,
Correct.
But yeah, I would say, so, with that said, that I think is the core, right? The framework, the foundation of where you've come, Juliette, to deliver great results. And, being that this is the Common Sense AI podcast, I did want to kind of end, if you will, on just this idea. I like to ask guests, if you had a magic wand. I know you said you actually were going to be taking a course soon, so maybe that'd be interesting. I'd love to hear what it's titled. But if you had a magic wand to do something for either you or a client, based on the clients that you have, what you see their biggest need is, what would that be?
Their biggest need is understanding what matters most, what their priority really needs to be, and then executing on it. And we allow so many things to distract us and get in our way. And that's part of the eating the frog. And I see that as a big problem because, oh yeah, I know I need to do that accounting stuff. And I know that's going to move my business forward so I can get a loan, but I'm going to make these little creative things right now. And I'm going to post on the internet. And that's great, but that's not getting them where they need to be. So I would say that's a big issue.
So if you could have AI, like help derive that clarity, in terms of what first steps would be. Gotcha.
I like where you're going. That would be pretty cool to create some kind of formula. And you're like, this is the business, this is what's happening, blah, 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 click. And then you get this is what they need to focus on. Might be a little faster.
And so here's what I would say AI is a great tool for. It's that synthesizing of information. Right. We all know, I still take written notes every now and again, but if I don't take written notes, I'm definitely like taking notes somewhere. Granola, Fathom is taking notes. And the reason why is because I get to go back and refer to those things, right? And I'm using that as information that is like in the purest form, that's the context that the AI is using to then analyze where my problems might be, where there could be like opportunities as well. And so what I wanted to mention about that is like, yes, it would be a great part of that process where it's almost like the exercise of getting your clients to have, especially if it's over Zoom, if you have this framework of questions that you're asking as an intro, and then taking that through AI, and you have your framework, the 4-step framework, it could actually synthesize that, and then it just gets people. It gets people to that decision point, not the decision, but it gets people to the clarity, the initial clarity sooner. right? And
I really like that.
and if it's not, if you, as I would call you, the orchestrator, because you're kind of like the orchestrator of your AI in this sense and what you train it on, if you see that it's off and like, oh, this actually doesn't align with my core values, my beliefs, my framework, you adjust it. And that's where it becomes, AI becomes your proprietary sort of like asset. Your AI is nothing like anybody else. It's like you're no longer using generic AI tools. You're using an AI that's been trained on your frameworks and your knowledge. And then the next time you bring another client in and it analyzes and it's like, oh, it's even more refined now. And like, oh, that's it. And so, because what I learned at the end of the day with this stuff and with AI, when I got to the point where I was, there was a time, honestly, when I was so apprehensive about giving my information to the internet and to whoever, and now that has fundamentally shifted because the benefit of what I get is so much more valuable than me being closed off. Right. It's just, and plus, not to mention, everything's already out there already, like all of our information. So we might as well use it to our benefit. And that benefit comes with starting now and training your own kind of like LLM or your own AI from the get. Because the sooner that you build your framework out, then that's the foundation from which all these other things can be built. And that's where like real efficiency and power comes in. So yeah, I think
that's what I love about my AI. It knows me pretty well now.
Yeah.
And it says, oh my God, that aligns perfectly with your framework. And it's just really fun. I enjoy it. I call mine Clement or Clement, which means wisdom in French. Yeah.
Nice. And do you use...
But it's not always right.
Oh, no. That could be a whole nother segment. Yeah. It's not always right. However, there are things that we can do to fine tune that. So that way, that's, we call that like the hallucinating, right? Like, so that way it doesn't hallucinate because...
Oh, that's funny.
That was the trade-off between being very specific or being more creative, was that the AI will hallucinate now or it will be creative, right? And many times to the detriment of people. I'm sure, like you just mentioned right now, oh, that was a great idea. So, they've come out with plenty of information now that say like AI will agree with you like 50% more than a human would, right? And it was engineered that way. It was engineered to be very creative and supportive of your ideas, whether they're bad or they're good. So, there's some engineering that has to be done to just be like, look, give it to me straight. Don't make things up. I want it only based in my frameworks and nothing else, right? And that then it becomes a much more valuable tool.
I think I've trained mine as far as I've pushed back. Now, wait a minute. I told you blank, blank, blank. Why are you adding this in? And then now I feel like I'm getting pushback from AI. Now, I know you said that you think this is what you want to say, but no, because remember, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, you're reminding me of my framework or reminding me of what the whole goal of that call will be or something. It's funny.
Nice.
I'm training it, definitely. And it's training me.
Well, it's been great, Juliette. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure getting to know you in the first place, learn about your family life and the great impact that you're having in the community there in Atlanta, right?
Yes, Atlanta. Hot Atlanta. It's 90 degrees today.
Hot Atlanta. Yes.
Yeah, but no, I absolutely love what I do because seeing the impact is what I look for. I guess I'm going to go back to that dopamine hit. Seeing people and their lives change and have it more positive, that makes me happy.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen. I've really enjoyed it and appreciate it.
Likewise. I knew we were going to have fun.
So,
we met. Good conversation. Great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank
have
you,
a great
Stephen.
day.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.